Hey guys, what's up? It's Savannah. Welcome back to another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. If you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah and I'm your host of My Thoughts Exactly. And before we get started, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly here on the podcast every single Friday. You are not going to want to miss it. We also upload the video version onto YouTube on Fridays as well. So make sure you are subscribed. And with that being said, you guys, happy Friday. I hope you've had a great week. And if you haven't, guess what? It's Friday. It's the weekend. You did it. Happy Friday. This episode that I'm currently recording, I'm recording it on January 8th. It is Wednesday, and it has been a whirlwind of a day. I just want to send my biggest hugs, prayers, thoughts to anyone in LA right now who is being affected or was affected by the time you guys hear this by the fires. I know it affected my family. My grandma's house burned down today. It has been a crazy day. So I'm really just sending all of my thoughts and my love to everyone who has been affected. It's absolutely heartbreaking looking at all the pictures and the videos. It is just so devastating to see all of that. And so I just love you all and I want you to be safe and I hope that you are. And, you know, luckily on my side, yes, my grandma, her home did burn down, her and her husband, but everyone is safe and that is what truly matters. And so just sending my love to everyone out there. Today, the time you are hearing this, it is actually Friday, and we are going to be experiencing the opposite of what has happened in LA. We are going to be experiencing snow this coming Friday, and it's very interesting this is the thing that you guys need to know about Nashville if you live here or have ever lived here or if you're coming to visit. Nashville, the one thing that we do not know how to handle is snow. Nashville, when you tell Nashville that snow is coming, we treat it as if it were the apocalypse. I kid you not. We are getting, anywhere between like 3 to 6 inches of snow on Friday is what they're saying now. I saw earlier it said 4 to 8. I don't know. But any sort of snow, this city goes into panic. We do not know how to handle it. Well, first of all, it's not even really just the snow. It's more so the lack of resources that we have to do anything about it. Like the roads are horrible. They're so icy and no one comes in to, put the stuff on the roads to make the ice melt. What is that called? I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about. We don't have that. So the roads stay icy for a really long time, which is where it gets really dangerous. So I will not be leaving the house for the foreseeable future. I was talking to my dad and he was like, you guys can come out and like stay with us and da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, but then I'm going to be stuck there. So I think I'd rather stay at home. Not that I wouldn't love it, but you guys get the drift. Anyways, that is the weather report. That is the update. But that is not what we are here to discuss today. I'm actually really excited about today's episode. I'm not going to lie. I feel that this is a very important episode for us to talk about. As you can tell by the title, we're talking about boundaries. And one thing that we are going to be doing in 2025 is we are going to be setting boundaries. 2025 is the year of boundaries. It's the year of protecting your peace. It is the year of saying no. And it's also, say yes when you want to, but it's the year of saying no. I had reached out to you guys today. I was asking you guys what episodes you wanted to hear, what topics you wanted to hear. And I got in different forms, this like a lot of the same response, which was navigating adult relationships, pertaining to your family, navigating adult friendships, learning how to say no, things of that nature. So I thought, why not just umbrella this and talk about boundaries? Because I think when it comes to adult friendships, adult relationships, protecting your peace, the one common denominator that I find in all of those things is boundaries. And we're going to talk about why. And, for me, I think that this is also very relevant because I'm at a stage in my life where I'm realizing the importance of boundaries, especially after getting engaged and when, people start talking about weddings and everyone's throwing in their 2 cents and everyone's throwing in their opinion. It is so important, I am now learning, to be able to stand up for yourself and have boundaries. And the biggest reasoning for that I've learned for myself is not because I want to have boundaries and because boundaries are a fun thing to have, but it is in my best interest to have boundaries for myself and to protect my peace and my sanity. Now, I do think that there is, I'm just going to say this. Sometimes I don't like when people talk, not that I don't like when people talk about boundaries, but I do think that, a lot of times people will be, not the most, let's just say this. Sometimes people aren't the best versions of themselves and they're like, well, that's my boundary. That's my boundary. You have to respect it. That's my boundary. I'm not talking about that. Having boundaries doesn't mean you have to be a bitch, but there are certain times in life where you have to have boundaries for yourself, for your sanity, for your peace. I'm not saying, the littlest thing that happens in life, I'm not doing it. I have a boundary. That's not what I mean. You guys know the people I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about today. Today, we're talking about boundaries and the importance of them for the sake of your sanity and your well-being, and why they're important and how to implement them without feeling bad about it. Because I think that is something that I know personally I've been having to navigate with. I know for me, I think that I did a pretty good job in 2024 of protecting my peace and my sanity, and I very much intend to do the same thing this year. 2025, I'm protecting my peace. I'm protecting my own sanity. I'm staying in my lane. It's one of those things where, have you seen those TikToks where it's like, imagine hating me and I'm sitting on the couch with a glass of wine watching, some sort of show or some movie, or imagine hating me or being mad at me and I'm just sitting at home knitting. Like one of those types of TikToks, that's where I'm at in my mindset. And truthfully, I don't know if it's because my frontal lobe has developed. I've thought about this so much as of late, like and recently. I've been thinking about it. I think my frontal lobe, I think it clicked. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know where, but I think it did. I have noticed such a shift in my mindset in terms of my priorities, what I want out of life, like in the past 6 months, or more than that, maybe the past year. I've just noticed such a shift in myself, and it's a good shift. It really is. A year ago, if someone was like, just little things like the social aspect of life. A year ago, if someone was like, let's, go bar hopping, I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's go have fun. Let's do this. Now you tell me that, you will not catch me anywhere. I don't know if that's frontal lobe development or if that is just me becoming more antisocial. But regardless, I definitely feel like there has been lots of frontal lobe development lately, but we can talk about that another day. Anyways, if it's frontal lobe development or if it is just me having boundaries, I feel like I have done a pretty okay job at protecting my own sanity and my own peace. I have noticed that before that and leading up to this past year, I have definitely had a tendency in life to be a people pleaser. We have talked about this many a times on this podcast. I have had a tendency to really just say yes to everyone, anyone and everyone. I don't like disappointing people. I do not like letting people down. I do not like making people feel like they cannot rely on me and like they can't count on me. I have had a tendency to put everyone's feelings above my own and, never say no, even when I'm at the end of my rope. And I've done that again to, appease everyone else and to be that people pleaser. And I was always tiptoeing around everyone. I was always making sure, I wasn't making too much noise, not taking up too much space. I wasn't getting in anyone's way. But I realized at the end of the day, the one person that was doing a disservice for was myself. But there was also a second layer of that, which was, yes, it was me doing a disservice to myself, but it was also, in a way, doing a disservice to everyone else around me. So I guess it was, not just me who the disservice was happening to, but to everyone else around me, because I was not showing up in the most authentic way. I was not showing up as the best version of myself. I was not showing up, ready and willing to do whatever I had to do to be that good friend, to be that good person, because I felt so drained. I felt like I could not pour into my glass because I was pouring into everyone else's. And that comes along with never wanting to disappoint anyone and never wanting to be the person to let everyone down. But what I'm realizing as I get older and I'm, in this stage of life where I'm, navigating adult friendships and family relationships, it is okay to take a step back, and it is okay to ask yourself, what is best for me in this moment? Is what's best for me just saying yes to someone else because they're asking it? Is what's best for me spreading myself way too thin for the sake of everyone else? Because at the end of the day, like I said, you're doing a disservice to yourself, but everyone else around you by constantly being in a cycle such as that. And I think that it's easy for us to just like be in that cycle without even realizing it. I remember there was a time last year, which I know I said I did a pretty good job of it last year, but it was kind of like the mid to end of last year where my boundaries really started kicking in. But the beginning of last year, just from like a social standpoint, and I talked about this on the podcast actually, there was a time where I was saying yes to everyone. Anyone who needed anything from me, yes. You need me to be, somewhere, yes. You want to go do something, yes. I was in this yes man mode for a multitude of reasons. One, again, I was that people pleaser. I didn't want to let anyone down. But also along with that, I had this moment of like, Savannah, like, you're getting into your later 20s, there's going to be a time where you're going to have more responsibility and you're not going to be able to just drop everything and go out, or drop everything and go to dinner, or drop everything and, go on a trip. Like, I was constantly reminding myself to just do it now, just do it now. And so I was always saying yes to everyone. And then I reached the biggest level of burnout and I had to ask myself, what am I doing? Who am I doing this for? Am I really doing this for myself? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really seem like it. It seems as if I am saying yes to everyone to please them. And in the moment, I'm like, okay, yeah, we can do that. Then the day of comes, or the hours leading up to it come, and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. This is not helping me. I have shit that I have to do. I have to wake up early the next morning, but I'm going to put all of that aside so I can show up for someone else. Now, again, this is not me telling you to be a bitch and to be like, I have boundaries and you can't cross them and da 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 da. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the importance of taking a step back and asking yourself, where is my limit? Where is my limit? Whether that's pertaining to family, because I know adults and family and sometimes family relationships are all sorts of messed up and they're all sorts of twisted. And we excuse it because we're like, oh, well, it's my family. Or, people in your life will be like, oh, but that's your family. So what? So what? Trust me, I'm so big on family. If you know me, you know how much my family means to me. You know how much I absolutely adore my family, but you also know how much I understand that is such a privilege. I know so many people do not have great relationships with their family, and so many people struggle with, having even just like a casual conversation with their immediate family. They don't want to see them. They don't want to talk to them. You're trying to go no contact. I know that that's a shitty situation to be in. No one wants to be in that circumstance. No one wants to be in that situation. So I completely understand and can recognize how grateful and blessed I am to be in a position where I love my family and I would do anything for them. I know other people don't have that same, privilege. And so I can understand, or I can try and maybe not understand, but I can acknowledge the struggle that is of having those strained relationships with family members. And I also can recognize the importance of setting boundaries within those relationships, within the family relationships. Same thing for adult friendships or friendships at any age. You have to have boundaries sometimes. You're going to hurt some people's feelings sometimes. And although it might not be the happiest moment, it might not make you feel good, sometimes it has to happen and it's okay. I think that something I realized is as I moved forward in life and I'm really trying to find my voice, so to speak, and that kind of just sounds ridiculous, but there's so many times in life where I have kept quiet and I have bitten my tongue and I don't say what I actually want to say and I don't say what I'm feeling. And if I'm upset or if I'm sad over something and I can't get something out of my head, I will just internalize it and I'll bury it. I'll bury it. And I've noticed over the past year that when I do that, it really screws me up. I am not someone who does well at just burying. I can try, and I think I've gotten away with it for a really long time. But and that's something I should actually talk about in therapy. I have therapy today in about 2 hours. I'm very excited. It's going to be my second appointment. Cannot wait. But as I was saying, I think I've gotten away for a very long time with just burying my emotions and burying my true feelings and burying my thoughts because I didn't want to cause a scene. I didn't want to cause a ruckus. I didn't want to be too loud. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But again, what I realized is by doing that, I am doing myself and everyone around me a disservice because they are not getting the most authentic version of me. So here's what I've decided in 2025, and I encourage you guys to do the same. I really think that, and I've told myself this, I've had this conversation with myself. If I am in a situation where I am hurt, I am sad, I feel any type of way, I'm going to communicate it. I always preach the importance of communication, the importance of transparency, and I think somewhere along the way, I kind of got lost in my own, in my own version of that all, because I think that I've just tried to people please and I've tried to, make everyone feel good and I've tried to, be that person and, in the result of that, I have ended up carrying so much more weight than I don't even think I've been able to process. There has been so many times in the past year where I have felt so heavy, just mentally heavy, because I was not putting myself first and I was carrying on everyone else's burdens. And sometimes you have to just put your foot down. Hayden and I have had many conversations over the past year, and it's kind of been like an inside joke because he's joked that I have become everyone in my life's therapist. And I love that. I love being there for my people. I love being able to be someone who someone else can trust and rely on and, go to in times of hardship or adversity. Like I want to be that person for my people. I want to be that person for everyone. But what I've realized is that by not having a boundary of being able and recognizing when I need to turn off, like when I need to be like, okay, I need to turn my brain off. Like I need to I need to shut, I need a moment. Like I need a minute. I need a moment. I need a good 24 hours to decompress before anyone tells me any more information about anything going on in their life. I need a minute because I think what I've realized is I'm much more of an empath than I originally thought. I have always said that I was not an empath because I don't cry when other people cry. And I don't. I really, really don't. Maybe I will, but for the majority of my life, I have not been like that. Like I don't cry when someone else cries. I don't feel their pain. Like I'm not like that. And I don't know if that's like a good thing. I don't even know if that's something I should admit. I feel like it makes me sound cold-hearted. But what I've realized is that, I do carry a lot of weight when people express what's going on in their lives. When people tell me these things, I noticed over time, it really screwed me up. Like there were a couple of really intense conversations that I had over this past year where I needed about 5 to 7 business days to recover. And that's what I'm talking about. Those are the moments where I need to say, okay, we're putting up a boundary. I need a minute. I need a moment. I need to decompress. I need to, regather my thoughts. I need to take a nap, and I will revisit this at a later date. That's kind of what I am talking about in terms of taking on everyone else's mental load. And again, that was like a hard thing to come to terms with because I always want to be the person that everyone can come to. And I always want to be that safe space for people. But sometimes you need to be the safe space for yourself too. And when there is so much going on up in your mind of like everyone else's problems in the world, sometimes you just need to take a minute and take a moment and shut it off. And that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad friend. It doesn't make you a bad sister, daughter, whatever. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you need to prioritize you for a second, because at the end of the day, if you do not prioritize yourself, who else will? Who else is going to put you above them? You got to do it. You have to do it. You have to make that effort to prioritize yourself. And that is going to be a choice, because when you are a people pleaser and you are someone who is, really just like bends over backwards for people and puts yourself in front of others, it's not going to come as second nature to choose you. it's not going to come easily to be like, wait a second, I need to choose me in this moment, because your instinct is going to tell you to revert back to old ways and to, do the things and the behaviors that you were used to doing that led you into feeling overwhelmed or stressed or, any of those feelings. But you have to make the choice to choose you. In any circumstance in life, you always have that choice. You can always make that choice. Sometimes that choice is easier to make than others, but again, the importance of that and being able to recognize like, no, I need to choose me in this moment. For the sake of everyone here, you want me to choose me in this moment, because if not, I will spiral. And if not, this is not going to end well for anyone. That's what I'm talking about. Now, when it comes to family and when it comes to those types of relationships, I am going to be transparent and tell you, again, I've never really had to do that. I've never had to go no contact with a family member. I've never, been in that situation. And if you are, and if you have been, I know we've talked many a times about that on What Would Sav Do's. Like, you guys have been in situations like that. And truthfully, I'm sorry that you have to be in those situations, because that's fucking horrible. And I'm really sorry that you've been put in a position where you have to go no contact with either a family member or a family member in law, like something like that. That's really, really difficult. But again, even though I've never been in that exact circumstance, what I can tell you is that it pretty much the same thing applies. When it comes to your peace and when it comes to your sanity, nothing is worth more than that. There is nothing in this world that is worth more than your state of mind and your inner peace and your happiness. And sometimes if, someone screwed you over time and time again, blood or not, sometimes you have to cut it. Sometimes you got to cut the cord. Sometimes you got to cut it off. That doesn't mean forever, but it means for right now. And it means that you need to take a second and recognize that, and recognize what it is doing to you and your own mental sake, and make a change. And again, it's not permanent. It doesn't have to be. It can be if you want it to. But I know some people, and I know I'm like this too, of like, well, what am I going to do? Cut them off forever? Like, I don't know. Don't worry about that. Worry about right now. Worry about the next 7 days, the next 24 hours, 48 hours. Worry about the short term, and then take it from there. You can set boundaries however you want to, however you deem fit. So if that's saying, you know what, I'm just going to take a couple days and I'm going to decompress. I'm going to step away from the situation, but that's what I need to do for my own mental and my own sanity's sake. That's perfectly fine. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That's really, really important to be able to recognize that. So definitely hold on to that. And also, this kind of goes into the second part of this, which is not letting anyone make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. Like I mentioned, there are very few people in the world who would prioritize you over them. If this is not one of those people, then you need to take a step back and ask yourself, am I prioritizing myself? Am I choosing me? Am I okay? Am I good? Ask yourself those questions. And again, this doesn't mean that you can't be a selfless person. This doesn't mean that you can't be the type of person that wants to put others before themselves. That's all fine. That's all good. Those are such amazing qualities and characteristics to have as a person. But when you're getting to a point where you feel like you're drowning, that's where we got to reconsider some things. That's where we got to take a step back and shift the narrative a little bit, because I think it's really easy to fall down a slippery slope of feeling like everything is too much. Things are too much. You can't handle it anymore. And I'm encouraging you to set these boundaries before you get to that point. But sometimes you're past the point of no return, and then you got to set the boundaries. You get past a certain point, and then it's like, oh shit, I need to set a boundary. And that's okay. 2025 is the year that we're setting boundaries, and the year we're not feeling bad about it. I think that it's so important. And I'm really telling myself this year, this goes back to really just having that open communication and transparency. I am telling myself that if something is bothering me, if I am upset, if I am sad, if I feel hurt, I'm going to express that. I've said this before. Me and Hayden have amazing communication. I am really, really open with him. He's very transparent with me. We have a really great way that we communicate with each other, and it's effective and it works, and I'm really, really proud of that for us. But for some reason, I find myself, when it comes to quite literally anything else, I have trouble communicating my true thoughts and feelings. When that comes to friendships, when it comes to family, a lot of times I just really struggle, and I sit there and I bite my tongue. And again, I don't really know what it is. Again, it might be a people-pleasing thing. It might be, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But when it comes to myself, one of my goals this year is just really kind of, nipping things in the bud right when they happen and biting the bullet and just being like, you know what, this is what bothered me and this is what hurt me. It doesn't make me overly sensitive. It doesn't make me, oh my God, it's just no. Like all of those things that I say in my head of like why I shouldn't say something and why I shouldn't, make it an issue or cause a scene. Like, God forbid I speak my mind. I always try and convince myself why I shouldn't do these things. But at the end of the day, the only person that hurts is me. And there's certain times and points in life where you get to be selfish and you get to prioritize you. And you get to recognize that if your feelings are hurt, you get to say something. You do. Now, I'm not saying that it's, that it's going to be smooth sailing. All I'm saying is that it's important to ask yourself who you're doing more damage to in moments like this. FYI, that is me acknowledging the fact that sometimes people, when they know that you are a people pleaser, when they know that you will put their best interest above your own, sometimes people will have a tendency to take advantage and not be the most, the best type of person, and they will take advantage of you, and they will see that as something that they can take from you and something that is a weakness when actually it is a strength. Being a selfless person is a strength. Do you know how much strength it takes to put others above yourself? That is something that is such a beautiful quality to have. And I'm not telling any of you to lose that. I'm not telling you that you should, become this super selfish, just type of person. What I'm saying is that when things get to be too much and when things get to be overwhelming and when things are no longer, good for your peace and your sanity, that is when it is time to reevaluate and to ask yourself, who am I helping by doing this? Who am I hurting by doing this? And if you are hurting yourself in the process of anything, it is time to reevaluate. And so I do want to mention, because I want to say that because I think sometimes it's like you have to be one or you have to be the other. No, it's not. You can be a selfless human. You can be a good, giving, kind, compassionate person, but still have boundaries and still have a limit. Everyone has a limit. It's just about what's acknowledging yours. It's just about noticing what it is. It's about recognizing it and being like, listen, for the sake of everyone, I have to have a boundary and I have to have a limit, and I have to put my foot down a little bit, because if I don't, it's not going to be good for anyone. Again, just like kind of having that mindset. And so that's why I think it's important to talk about this, because I think when talking about boundaries, it's sometimes brought into conversation in like a 0 or 100 type of scenario, or very black and white. It does not have to be. You can have boundaries while still being compassionate and being a listener and being social and going out and doing things. Like, you can do all of the things, but you can also recognize when it's too much. And it doesn't have to come across in a bitchy way. It doesn't have to come across in a, condescending, passive aggressive or petty type of manner. It needs to come across, though. It needs to be clarified. And here's the thing. If there are people in your life who are going to give you shit about it, if there are people in your life who are going to, talk down to you for putting yourself first or for having a boundary, truthfully, I would reevaluate that relationship. I'm not saying I would cut it off, but I would have to reevaluate that, because if someone in my life is criticizing so heavily me making a decision for myself that is so crucial for my own inner peace and, stability and sanity, I have to ask why. Why don't you want me to have a peace of mind? Why don't you want me to feel sane? Like, why? And it would make me reconsider that sort of relationship and friendship. But I'll tell you what, when you form boundaries, you will realize that it's really not that big of a deal. I think that's the other thing too. When we talk about boundaries, it's like it becomes, when you don't have them in place, and it doesn't have to be like, again, I feel like I need to preface this because I've seen so many talks about boundaries and the importance of it, whatever, but sometimes I feel like the message gets misconstrued, and it's like when you introduce yourself, it's like, hi, I'm Savannah and these are my boundaries. Like, no. But when they come up in practice, I think that when you aren't used to putting them, again, in that practice, it can feel overwhelming. It can feel daunting. Like, oh my God, this is the biggest thing in the whole world. I remember over the past year when I've put social boundaries into play and I've had to say, no, sorry, I can't do my 4th dinner this week with a different friend because for, the sake of my sanity, I need just some time to myself. I remember putting those boundaries into play, and obviously I didn't say it like that. I just probably said that I was sick or that I was tired or that I had a different obligation and I couldn't do it. When I would do that, I would feel like it was catastrophic. Like I would be, telling Hayden like, oh my God, I feel so bad. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. I feel bad. And it was like so uncomfortable. And then when I realized that the people that I love show up with that same love and that same respect, and it's like, oh yeah, no worries. We can reschedule. Or, oh yeah, sounds good. It was like, oh, it's okay to have this. This is okay. And now I get to take a moment and I get to recharge and I get to reset. And now I can show up for, I can show back up for them in a day or the next day or whatever. Whenever I see them again, I can show up and I'm going to be such a better version of myself. And I'm going to be able to like show up in such a more clear-headed way that they deserve, because they don't deserve to get a half-assed version of me. They don't deserve to have to sit there and, talk to me when my head's in the clouds. I have, all these other things going on, as I'm sure they do as well. But I just needed to have that boundary and respect myself enough to be like, listen, as much as I would love to see you, as much as I, want to spend time with you, tonight is just not the night. And to see them come back with compassion and grace, I was like, oh wow, this type of relationship exists. This type of friendship exists. And I'll tell you, you will see very quickly who your true friends are when you start putting boundaries into play, because the people who are used to you being there at their disposal and they take advantage of that, you will notice they'll move differently. They will approach it differently. They won't approach it with that same compassion and that same grace. But guess what? That's nothing to be afraid of. That's something to be happy about, because someone is showing their true colors. That's what I think about it. I just think that in 2025, we need to recognize the importance of prioritizing ourselves and the importance of recognizing how we feel in certain scenarios and how we show up for others. And I think it's really, really crucial for us to ask ourselves, how do we feel? Are we overwhelmed? Are we spread too thin? Are we, or are we good? Are we happy? Are we living life? We're thriving. And I can show up for my people and I can be there and I can, do whatever it is that needs to be done. But having those check-ins with yourself, and if you do fall into the, the group of, I need a minute, I need to set a boundary, I need a minute. And whatever that boundary looks like, I'm using it in more of like a social aspect because that's how I can relate to it more. But again, whatever that looks like for you, if that's a career boundary, if that is a family boundary, if that is a friend boundary, whatever boundary you need to have, again, it's going to look different for everyone, and how you approach it is going to look different. Again, if it's like a career versus a friend, that's going to look different. That type of conversation is going to be different. But it all falls under the same practice of recognizing I'm not okay. And instead of, running on autopilot, and instead of just going and going and going until I'm ultimately going to crash out, I'm going to stop myself before I get there. And I'm going to recognize what's happening, and I'm going to reassess and move forward the best way that I can. And sometimes that's going to be having to set a boundary. Sometimes it's going to mean having a conversation that maybe I don't want to have, but it's going to be best for me in the long run. Those are the important things to remember and recognize as we continue on throughout the entirety of the year and the entirety of the years to come. I think that's what's important about boundaries. And no one should ever make you feel guilty for having them. So that's my little boundary tech talk, you guys. That's what we're saying about boundaries. New year, new boundaries. That's what we're doing. This is the year of boundaries. This is the year of protecting your peace, protecting your sanity. And I'm excited for us for it. But with that being said, you guys, that is all for me today. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. I love you guys so much. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I will be back here next week with a brand new episode, and I'll see you then. Bye, guys.